out on the first episode, which I said I'm going to explain the Singleton and what the factory keyword is. So in this episode 2, I will cover that. Without further ado, let's go into what Singleton means. Singleton definitions is a singleton pattern ensures a class has only one instance and provides a global point of access to it. It means the same instance will be returned every time. That's what singleton is. The same copy will be existed every time the object is created. Exists in the program. So let's take an example of it. Imagine a container full of colorful balls, but every time you reach in, you always pull out the same red ball. This is just like a singleton pattern in programming. No matter how many times you ask, you'll always get the same instance. So in this case, every time there's only one instance. This is just a deceiving to many people, but just consider it. You're always going to get the same red ball. Okay, the same identical red ball. So let's look at it in more a programming aspect of it. So I have two sets of codes. One is Java, which the reason I'm having Java on the side is because it gives more clarity on the hidden codes that Flutter doesn't show. So let's look at it, the Flutter first. So we're creating a private constructor here, and then the private constructor we creates an object, my object. So it's creating the instance basically. So that same instance, so it's going to do checking. As I say, the factory, what does it do? It does checking first. If it's null, then it creates a new object or instance. If it's not, then it returns the same objects. So let's look at into the same thing, but in Java code. So as you can see on the Java code, it returns same thing. So it creates it, and then you have the static, which means the same copy will be returned. But what makes it more clear here is when we run this code, we should get the same identical thing. So whatever is inside here should be the same as this. So if you do that checking, so here you're comparing it by app1 and app2. So they should be true. They all equal to each other. So that's for the compare. I hope that makes it clear. Let's move on. Let's look into the factory purpose. So what's really the purpose of having a factory, or the keyword factory? The keyword factory is used when you want a constructor to return an existent instance or an instance of a class that may not be a new instance each time. This is particularly useful when you're implementing a design pattern like what I've talked about, like singleton, and when you're creating an instance that depends on a certain condition or may come from a cache. So you're returning the existing. Basically, factory is known to return existing ones. So let's look at it more for more clarity's sake how it works. So the first thing is it's going to check it's going to run the program. The coding that we saw is going to run, meaning this code here. So if we run this code, so it checks, okay, does it exist an instance? No, it doesn't exist, then it creates it. If it's a null, then it's going to create it, a new instance, and then it returns that instance. The logger is the class name I use to create these flow charts, but think of it as my app. Okay, this is my app. Yeah. So if it's not null, then it returns the existing ones. So they take it as when the program is new, it will create a new instance because it's the first time it runs. But if it's running every time, then it's gonna return the same existing ones. Another key point to remember is before the constructor returns, it checks for the inputs and reads the catchment before deciding to return. Okay, to sum up or to recap what we talked about. So we talked about this is how you create a private constructor by using the underscore. Okay, in Flutter you use the underscore. In Java you've seen it is private, but not to worry, that's Java one, it's just for the sake of understanding. But the key things, what we need to remember as we're focusing on Flutter, is the underscore defines is a private constructor. And then here we also covered what is known as the factory keyword. The factory keyword, what can we take it? It returns an existing one. If an existing one doesn't exist, then it creates an instance of the class, meaning this class here. So as you can see more clear, it creates an object which is instance of my class. Okay, so here indicates it creates a variable called, this is a variable, this is creates the object and then assigns it to my object. So this object will, if you keep on creating or calling it on the factory, you will have the same instance. If you create multiple things, you will return the same instance value. I hope that makes sense. If there's any things that's not clear, please feel free to put comments in it and I will update it or reply back to the chat for the sake of clarity. Thank you.